What if everything fans believed about Lil Durk's 1 million story was never the full truth? Because today, Quando Rondo is finally speaking up, and what he's revealing has the internet completely divided. For years, fans ran with the narrative, the money, the loyalty, the streets, and the silence. Social media treated it like an untouchable fact. But now, Quando Rondo is pulling back the curtain, and according to him, the story people thought they knew doesn't add up the way they were told. This isn't just another rap rumor or clout-chasing headline. Quando's words are detailed, direct, and loaded with context fans were never given before. He doesn't just question the numbers, he questions the intent, the timing, and the reason the 1M story was pushed so hard in the first place. And that's why fans are stunned. Some are calling it the biggest plot twist in a recent hip-hop drama. Others believe this changes how we view Lil Durk's role behind the scenes. And then there are those asking the most dangerous question of all, why speak now? Was this story exaggerated for image? Was it misunderstood from the jump? Or has the truth been hidden in plain sight the entire time? One thing is clear, once you hear what Quando Rondo actually says, you'll never look at that 1M story the same way again. Stay locked in, because this revelation is about to shake the narrative completely. As the conversation around this 1 million story starts heating up again, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. The timeline doesn't sit right. When Quando Rondo finally decided to speak, he didn't come off emotional or reckless. Instead, his tone was calm, calculated, and almost tired, like someone who's watched a narrative grow bigger than the truth for years. According to Quando, the problem isn't just the money itself. It's how the story was framed, who benefited from it, and why certain details were conveniently left out when fans first heard about it. He makes it clear that the internet took a simplified version of events and ran with it, turning it into a symbol of power, loyalty, and street credibility. And that's where things start getting uncomfortable. Quando points out that when people hear 1 million, they automatically assume influence, control, and finality. But in reality, situations in the rap industry, especially ones tied to street narratives, are rarely that clean. He hints that the number was emphasized more than the actual circumstances, creating a myth bigger than what really happened behind closed doors. What makes his claims hit harder is the fact that he doesn't directly attack Lil Durk. Instead, he questions the environment around the story. The people who spoke for others, the blogs that amplified half-truths, and the fans who accepted everything without asking how or why. This is important because for years, that 1M story became a reference point in online debates. Anytime Durk's name came up, fans would bring it up like a receipt, proof of dominance, proof of loyalty, proof of how deep things ran. But Quando suggests that this exact mindset is why the truth never surfaced earlier. He explains that speaking up sooner would have only poured gasoline on an already raging fire. At the time, emotions were high, alliances were fragile, and anything said publicly could have escalated situations in ways no one could control. Silence, according to Quando, wasn't guilt, it was survival. That revelation alone changes how many fans are now rereading old moments. Interviews, lyrics, social media posts. Suddenly, what once looked like confidence now looks like strategic quietness. As the conversation continues, Quando also addresses the idea that money automatically equals resolution. Fans assumed that once a number like 1 million entered the picture, the story was over. Case closed. But Quando pushes back hard on that idea. He explains that money doesn't erase tension, history, or consequences, especially when multiple people and reputations are involved. He hints that the industry has a habit of reducing complex situations into headlines that fit neatly into thumbnails. And once that happens, the truth becomes secondary to the narrative that generates the most clicks. This is where fans really start splitting into camps. One side believes Quando is finally saying what he always wanted to say but couldn't. They see his calm delivery as a sign of honesty, someone who waited until emotions cooled down to tell his side without chaos. To them, this isn't exposure, it's correction. The other side isn't buying it. They argue that timing matters and speaking now feels convenient. They question why these details weren't clarified when the story first went viral. To them, silence allowed the narrative to harden into fact, and breaking it now feels like rewriting history. Quando seems aware of this criticism. He doesn't ask to be believed blindly. Instead, he urges people to look at patterns, who speaks loudly during controversy, who stays quiet, and who benefits from the noise. He suggests that in hip-hop, perception often matters more than accuracy, and once an image is established, it's almost impossible to dismantle. What's especially telling is how carefully he avoids naming specific individuals outside of what's already public. That restraint adds weight to his words. This doesn't feel like clout chasing or an attempt to trend. It feels like someone choosing precision over explosion. And that choice matters. Because this isn't just about Lil Durk or Quando Rondo anymore. It's about how stories are created, sold, and consumed in modern hip-hop culture. One claim, repeated enough times, becomes fact. One number, said loudly enough, becomes legend. Quando's message is clear. Fans were given a version, not the whole picture. The biggest takeaway isn't whether the 1M story was real or exaggerated. It's that the truth is layered, and the loudest version isn't always the most accurate. What started as a simple flex has now turned into a conversation about silence, power, and who controls the narrative. And if this is only the beginning of what Quando Rondo is willing to reveal, then the next part might be even more uncomfortable, especially for those who built their image around a story that's now being questioned in real time. Because once a myth starts cracking, there's no going back. Because once a myth starts cracking, the pressure doesn't disappear, it multiplies. As fans begin questioning the 1 million story in real time, the spotlight doesn't just fall on Lil Durk. It shifts toward the entire system that allowed this narrative to grow unchecked. And this is where Quando Rondo's perspective becomes even more uncomfortable, because he isn't just reacting, he's analyzing. According to Quando, one of the biggest misunderstandings fans have is assuming that silence automatically means acceptance. In hip-hop culture, especially when street politics intersect with industry politics, silence can mean 100 different things. Fear, strategy, protection, or simply waiting for the right moment when speaking won't cause irreversible damage. He explains that early on, the atmosphere surrounding the situation was volatile. Every word was being dissected, every move exaggerated, and every rumor weaponized. In that environment, correcting details wasn't just risky, it was dangerous. So instead of arguing narratives publicly, Quando chose to stay quiet and let time do what it always does, reveal cracks. And those cracks are showing now. Quando points out how quickly blogs and fan pages turned a single claim into a symbol. The 1 million number stopped being information and started becoming branding. It was repeated in comment sections, arguments, reaction videos, and even memes, until questioning it felt almost disrespectful to some fans. That's the power of repetition. Once a story reaches that level, anyone who challenges it automatically looks defensive, bitter, or dishonest. Quando admits he knew this. He knew that no matter how calmly he spoke, people would question his motives. But he also knew that continuing to stay silent would mean letting a distorted version of events define him permanently. That's why this moment matters. Instead of attacking Durk directly, Quando zooms out and talks about narrative ownership. He suggests that in hip-hop, whoever speaks first or loudest often controls how history is written. And when money, status, and fan loyalty are involved, those narratives harden quickly. He also touches on something fans rarely consider. Not all truths are meant to be public immediately. Some details involve people who never asked to be famous. Some truths, if revealed too early, can reignite conflicts that never truly ended. This adds a new layer to the conversation. Because now the question isn't just, was the 1M story exaggerated? It becomes, what would have happened if the full truth came out back then? Quando implies that restraint played a role in preventing situations from spiraling further. That restraint, however, came at a cost, his reputation. While one side benefited from the perception of power and control, the other side absorbed years of assumptions, jokes, and criticism. And that imbalance is finally being addressed. Fans start revisiting old clips with fresh eyes. Moments where Quando looked unbothered now feel intentional. Lyrics that once sounded vague now seem loaded. Even his career decisions are being reinterpreted, not as reactions, but as calculated moves to survive an industry that thrives on chaos. But not everyone is convinced. Critics argue that timing still feels off. They claim that once a narrative benefits someone for years, challenging it later looks like damage control. Quando doesn't dodge this criticism. He acknowledges it head-on, saying that truth doesn't expire, but people's readiness to hear it changes. That statement alone sends shockwaves through fan discussions. Because it forces listeners to confront an uncomfortable reality. Maybe the truth was always there, but fans weren't interested in hearing it. Maybe the myth was more entertaining than the facts. And maybe that's why it survived for so long. Quando also addresses the assumption that money equals resolution. He explains that large numbers thrown around publicly often oversimplify deeply personal and complex situations. A dollar amount can't capture tension, grief, loyalty, or consequences. Yet fans treated the 1 million figure like a final stamp, a sign that everything was settled. According to Quando, nothing was ever that simple. He hints that the real story involves layers of communication, miscommunication, and decisions made under pressure. Decisions that weren't meant to be dissected by millions of strangers online. And when those private moments were turned into public talking points, nuance was the first thing lost. It becomes clear that this isn't about proving someone wrong, it's about reclaiming agency. Quando isn't asking fans to switch sides. He's asking them to question why they picked one so easily in the first place. That's a dangerous request. Because once fans start questioning narratives, the entire ecosystem shifts. Blogs lose easy headlines. Comment sections lose certainty. And artists lose the comfort of controlling one-sided stories. And that's why this moment feels bigger than just two names. This feels like a reckoning with how hip-hop culture consumes conflict. How pain becomes content. How silence becomes guilt. And how numbers replace nuance. The tension hasn't been resolved, it's been reframed. The 1 million story is no longer just a flex or a rumor. It's a case study in perception versus reality. And the biggest question now isn't whether fans were misled. It's whether they're ready to accept that the story they believed for years was only one piece of a much larger, messier truth. Because if this is Quando Rondo just laying the groundwork, then what comes next might challenge everything fans thought they knew. Because if this really was just the groundwork, then what comes next forces fans to confront something far more uncomfortable than a disputed number. As the dust from Quando Rondo's statements continues to spread, the conversation officially shifts. This is no longer about defending or attacking Lil Durk. It's about accountability, perception, and power, and how easily fans allow narratives to become permanent truth without ever seeing the full picture. Quando makes it clear that he understands the risk of speaking now. Once a story has lived this long, correcting it doesn't just challenge facts, it challenges identities. Fans didn't just believe the 1 million story, they attached meaning to it. It became proof of dominance, loyalty, and influence. Letting go of that idea feels like losing something. And that's why resistance is so strong. According to Quando, this resistance is exactly why he waited. Not because he didn't have a response, but because he knew most people weren't ready to hear it. In the height of the moment, emotions ran too high. The internet wasn't looking for clarity, it was looking for a side to root for. Now, with time passed and tempers cooled, the cracks are finally visible. He points out how the culture rewards certainty, not nuance. Saying, "This is complicated" doesn't trend. Saying, "This is what really happened" gets ignored if it doesn't fit the dominant storyline. And once a narrative benefits powerful people, financially, socially, or culturally, it becomes protected by the crowd itself. That's when myths stop being questioned. Quando explains that what bothered him most wasn't the rumors, it was how quickly fans treated them as moral judgments. One side was painted as strong and honorable, the other as weak or guilty. And no one stopped to ask who actually paid the price for that framing. Because while one image grew, another reputation quietly suffered. He also addresses the idea that this revelation is meant to damage Lil Durk. According to Quando, that was never the goal. His issue isn't with Durk as an individual, It's with how stories get simplified, weaponized, and repeated until truth becomes irrelevant. That distinction matters, because it reframes this entire situation not as a personal attack, but as a cultural critique. A warning about how quickly fans turn speculation into fact, and how dangerous that can be when real lives are involved. As reactions continue pouring in, fan responses become impossible to ignore. Some listeners admit they never questioned the 1M story because everyone said it. Others admit they defended it without knowing details because it fit the image they already believed in. That realization hits harder than any allegation, because it forces fans to recognize their role in shaping these narratives. Blogs may post the story, artists may reference it, but it's the audience that gives it power. Without millions repeating it, the myth never becomes legend. Quando leans into this moment, urging fans to stop treating hip-hop conflicts like entertainment detached from consequences. He reminds people that behind every headline are real people navigating pressure, grief, and survival. And suddenly, the story feels heavier. This isn't about who won or who looked stronger. It's about how easily complexity gets erased when numbers and flexes take over the conversation. $1 million sounds definitive, clean, final. But life, especially in the spaces hip-hop comes from, is rarely any of those things. As the final moments of his message settle in, one truth becomes unavoidable. The 1M story was never the full story. Whether it was exaggerated, misunderstood, or selectively told almost doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that it was incomplete, and that incompleteness shaped years of perception. And once perception sets in, undoing it is almost impossible. That's why this moment feels less like an expose and more like a reckoning. Not just for Lil Durk, not just for Quando Rondo, but for a culture that thrives on certainty even when certainty doesn't exist. The final takeaway isn't about choosing sides. It's about asking better questions. Who benefits when a story spreads unchecked? Why do fans cling to narratives that feel powerful instead of ones that feel true? And how many other facts in hip-hop history are really just versions that survived long enough to become untouchable? As the conversation fades and the internet moves on to the next controversy, one thing remains changed forever. The 1 million story no longer stands uncontested. It's been challenged, reframed, and placed under a microscope where it can never return to being just a flex again. Because once doubt enters a myth, it never fully leaves. And whether fans accept Quando Rondo's perspective or reject it entirely, the narrative has already shifted. Silence has been broken, questions have been raised, and the illusion of certainty has cracked. In hip-hop, that's sometimes more powerful than any dollar amount. Before you click away, let's make one thing clear. This conversation doesn't end here. If this breakdown made you question the 1 million story, the narratives behind it, or how easily the internet turns rumors into facts, then you're already part of the discussion. And that's exactly why you need to stay locked in with this channel. This isn't about picking sides. It's about seeing the full picture, the details blogs skip, the context fans ignore, and the truths that only come out when the noise dies down. If you want real hip-hop analysis without the clickbait twists and fake outrage, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment and tell us what you think. Do you believe Quando Rondo's perspective changes the story? Or do you think the 1M narrative still holds weight? Your voice matters here, because hip-hop culture is shaped by conversations like this, not just headlines. And don't forget to like this video if you appreciate deep dives that actually respect the audience's intelligence. It helps the algorithm push this content to more people who are tired of surface-level takes. Turn on post notifications, because this isn't the last time we're breaking down uncomfortable truths. More exclusives, more context, and more stories the mainstream won't fully unpack are coming next. Stay informed, stay critical, and most importantly, stay ahead of the narrative. We'll see you in the next one.